What is an infinity bottle? Why would you make one? And how do you make your own? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today I'm going to be taking a look at all things infinity bottle. I am stood up for this exercise, which, well, unfortunately leaves my head somewhat cut off from the camera compared to where I'm normally sitting, so I'm going to have to bend down. But the reason I'm stood up is because I need to access many of the bottles behind me. But before we get into that and why, let's talk about the infinity bottle in general. And what is it? Well, an infinity bottle is just in effect a bottle of whiskey that you own that never goes empty. And the reason it never goes empty is because you're always topping it up. And what are you topping it up with? Well, that kind of is part of the beauty. It's entirely up to you. The point is really just to create your own blend of things that you like and you think will go well together. To create a unique blend that is only available in your house, and in effect every sip, well, I suppose the sips between topping it up again will be the same, but in general it changes with every experience, and it's something that you savour and keep and share with your nearest and dearest at the appropriate times of year. That kind of thing. Of course, you can just keep doing it and make as many blends as you want, but it's meant to be a kind of a slow and steady evolution. Today I'm going to be turning this bottle of Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Silver Select that I received for my 18th birthday into a brand new infinity bottle, and I'll take you along on that journey. However, in true Blue Peter style, here is one that I made earlier. Now, this one that is in an old bullet bottle isn't actually bourbon, it's all Scotch, and I'd made a video on this talking about making an infinity bottle, and this actually kind of went away from the norm. What I was trying to do here was blend two whiskies that I really didn't like that much, add in a few other bits, including some bourbon, some Irish and all sorts, to try and make it, well, just, yeah, a little bit more interesting. And later on we're going to see how I did and give that a taste, but I don't want to affect my taste buds just yet because, well, I want to get blending this bottle and also sample this Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Silver Select on its own for the very last time, because, well, this is a special bottle for me, which is why I wanted to use it. This was a gift on my 18th birthday, and, well, I've just never dared finish it. Of course, the stuff that's in there is old, oxidised, and nowhere near as good as it was, but, well, I'm still pretty confident it's not going to be too half bad. So then, let's chuck the old one out of the way for a minute and have a tiny, tiny sample, the tiniest sample of this Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Silver Select. This, at the time, nearly 18 years ago now in fact, would have been one of simply the most outrageous, relatively, I was not going to say even easy to get, but relatively available bourbons out there. And it's not as bright as it once was, maybe not as sweet, but it's still got huge amounts of depthy oak character, and I'm pretty sure this is still solid. Let's give it a go. Cheers. Oh, you can taste the corn in that. That is wild. So good, so good. Right. Anyway, finish that later. First off, we've got to decide what to do with this. Now, I actually said in my previous video that I was going to do this one, and that was over a year ago, so I've been a bit slack, but I did buy a fresh bottle of Jack Daniel's Single Barrel strength to, well, just kind of keep some more of that Jack Daniel's Single Barrel alive in this. Of course, once they're mixed, they're no longer a single barrel, but you get the idea. I've changed my mind. I'm going to sit down because I think for accurate pouring purposes, this would get a little bit tricky. Now, I'm not going to measure what's left in that, which does make this a bit vague in my best estimate. And to tell you what, we can start this by pouring some into this measure. That's about half of it, 50 mils in the measure, so we're on about 100 mil. And now I'm really, really nervous about getting this back in here without spilling it. Nailed it. Right. So we're starting off with 100 mils of the Silver Select. I'm going to add 50 of the barrel strength. Using a funnel to this would make way more sense, but here we are. Now, I do have some decisions to make about what whiskey to go next, and I'm just going to pick out my 3 favourite bourbons of the last year that happen to be on the shelf behind me. That is, of course, the E.H. Taylor Small Batch, a Buffalo Trace Barrel Pick, and Eagle Rare. Now, actually, not all of my favourite whiskies have been Buffalo Trace products, but these were the 3 that sprung to mind, and let's do these together and then we'll get into the other ones, because right now I'm really kind of finding it quite hard to pick a top 3 entirely, with the exception of the E.H. Taylor. So let's just do these and then we'll move on to the rest. But I'm thinking, to be honest, yeah, again, about 50ml of each. So those 3 are in, and now I'm going to add the same again of Wild Turkey 101. It's not the most elaborate, rich, indulgent bourbon out there, but it hits so hard for its price tag that I think it just deserves a spot in the bottle. Okay, so I think now we've got a good base, like just a solid, I'm not going to say middle of the road because the single barrels are in there are going to elevate it a bit, but everything else we put in there has been very good, but not maybe necessarily extreme in its flavour profile. So now I want to robust it up a bit more depth, a bit more sophistication, and then after all that we're going to sweeten it off just a touch to end up with something still middle of the road, but very, yeah, a good compound of flavours. So to try and sophisticate it up just a touch, Elijah Craig Small Batch and Wild Turkey Rare Breed. The Small Batch is much more just kind of soft and sophisticated, and some just less sweet, dark but not intense flavours. Meanwhile, the Rare Breed covers everything, but it's got some really nice, deep, rich, almost leathery notes in it. So let's splash a bit of these in. Again, we're just going to go 50s a piece because we need to get something kind of balanced first. Alarmingly, I don't think anything's spilt so far. I mean, I'm tempting fate like one of there, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this little measure. It pours nicely. And then the sweeteners, both finished bourbons. Angel's Envy, which is a port barrel aged finish, and then Woodford Reserve Double Oak, which is just finished in a secondary barrel. Super sweet, super chocolatey, that one, and the Angel's Envy, much more kind of sweet, fruity notes. So I think they'll go for, yeah, a nice combo, balancing each other off a little bit, but overall adding a touch of sweetness. Okay, and in effect, that's kind of it. It's just adding whiskey to another barrel. But the more you taste it, the more you go back to it, the more you consider it, the more you'll start to fine-tune it, refine it, and come up with something truly unique and hopefully very, very tasty. Now, what I am going to do is just sit this in here and just slowly try and give it a mix. We don't want to shake it around too much because we don't want too much of the oxygen in the bottle just to incorporate into the liquid itself, but a bit of splashing is inevitable. If we slowly just kind of move it around, let it all get nice and incorporated, we should start to get a bit of an idea of what it's like. Over the coming months, as those liquids sit in the bottle together, they are going to become much more unified, much more varied, depthy, interesting, and feel a bit more coercive. So even if you taste it now and you go, it's nice, but I'm not sure, leave it for ages. Come back to it and then see what you think. So first off, I'm going to have my very last sip of that Jack Daniel's single barrel silver select because, well, I need to, and then we're going to pour what's in there a tiny bit into this glass, give it a try and see what I think it needs, if of course anything. So let's do it. Cheers. It's gone forever, but it hasn't, because I know every time I take a sip out of this bottle, there's just a little bit of it kicking around in there. Actually, right now, compared to everything else, there's quite a lot of it, because it's twice the amount there was of anything else. But let's give this a little go. We're going to need a taster. The tiniest dram, in case we have to taste it a lot. Smells big, rich, hot, boozy, chocolatey. Heaps and heaps of vanilla in that. It's quite ridiculous. Right, let's give this a go. Cheers. Oh, so I can still taste individual bottles in there. The JD single barrels are obvious. They're there, they're hot, they're big, they're complex. The E.H. Taylor comes swinging in big, fiery, but again, big, rich caramel vanilla note. That Woodford double oaked with that chocolatey, it's almost like a chocolate cake, that whiskey, honestly. Comes in big at the end, nice big sweet chocolatey hit. That's actually fantastic. I'm not going to touch it, truthfully. Like, if you go back and watch my other video from this bottle, I refined it a lot. I was like, not sure, not sure, not sure. That I'm going to leave as is, and as I open new bottles, I'm going to start topping it up until it gets kind of full. I could fill it up now, and maybe that would be better for it, but you know what? I don't want to dilute this any more than it needs to be. I think what I've got there as a starter is something actually pretty special, so yes, I'm going to leave that as it is. However, one thing we do need to do is grab a fresh glass and find out if all that work I did over a year ago now actually paid off. Very different Scotch. It's, well, predominantly Scotch. It's got some Welsh. Actually, there's a lot of Welsh whiskey in here. There's also some Irish and some bourbon. Let's give this not its first outing. It's definitely had a few samples out of it since, but very few and far between. And it's been at least 6 months since the last one. So, ooh, you know what? So the base of this was Glenlivet Founders Reserve and one of the Penderyn bottles, both of which I didn't like. The Founders Reserve is way too hot, not much going on otherwise, and the Penderyn is just a bit soft and not interesting. But max them together and then add a few other bits in there. Real toffee vibe to that nose. Still quite hot, but yeah, should be interesting. Cheers. That tastes candied. That is candied fruit, bit of orange, toffee pennies. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's fantastic, but that bottle is now drinkable, and the majority of what it came from wasn't. So, there you go. Another option for your infinity bottle, if you don't want to just add all your good stuff to it, is actually find some stuff you don't like and try and improve it by adding little bits of better stuff and maybe other bits that you're not so keen on but might help balance it out. That is another fantastic way to use some whiskey that otherwise might not be that bothered about drinking. In terms of when you add other stuff to it, when I'm going to add new bits to this, it depends for me a little bit on the bottle. If I feel like there's a bottle that I quite like and will suit it, but I'm not mad on it, but it's good enough to go in. You know what I mean? One of those kind of better than middle of the road, but not hero status bottles. Then as it gets towards the end, if I feel like I'm not going to drink it before it oxidizes, some of it will go in here. On the flip side, when I do eventually open this bottle of Stag, which is frankly obscenely priced to get in the UK, for anyone that's interested, this is batch something or other. No, sadly it doesn't actually say, but it's a whopping 65.5%. It's one of the more recent ones, and yeah, as soon as that gets opened, I'm going to experience that, and then some of it is going to come into this bottle, but I'm not going to open that just for an infinity bottle. So yeah, for another day. But look, this is just an interesting experiment. It also helps you understand how whiskey flavours interact and how blends come about and how some blends are much better than others. Because despite there, especially in Scotch, there being a big thing about, you know, single malt being a lot better, actually, well, it often is, but it also isn't exclusively, and there are some fantastic blends out there. So yeah, might just give you some sort of appreciation for the art form that is blending whiskey. Have you got an infinity bottle on the go already, or are you going to start one now? You can use any old whiskey bottles. I've proven here with this bottle of Bullet. You can go and find that nearly dead nice one that you've had hanging around for a while, as I'm doing with the Silver Select, but it's just a fun experiment with your favourite liquor to go away and, yeah, really just play with. That is an infinity bottle. That is all it means. That is all it does. But to be honest, it's great fun, so give it a go. And that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you would be so kind. And I'll catch you next time. And I've not got anything to cheers you with, really, so cheers.